or Thursday, the weather. Call this meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Still want to say the flag of America. Please turn your cell phones and electronic devices to silent. And are there any additions, deletions to the agenda?
Madam Chair, I do not have any.
Anybody else have anything? And I would consider a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I'll move to second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Visitor comments? Welcome. All right, consider the consent agenda, the minutes of the previous monthly board meeting, the special board meeting held on November 21st, cash flow, including investments, monthly bills paid in the activities accounts, donations, which I would like to read. They were in front of me a minute ago. The Initiative Foundation for $1,700
Times 3.
times 3, yep.
What was that for?
Metals program, a grant.
That was actually from.
ProStar program, a grant, and the Woods program, a grant.
That was actually from the Anderson family, Anderson Brothers family, Anderson Families
Fun.
Fund.
Okay, beautiful.
Anderson Brothers.
Anderson Brothers family.
Yep.
Well, thank you to them.
Through the Initiative Foundation, so.
And also the personnel summary sheet. Can I get a motion to accept that?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns?
On that personnel summary sheet, is the resignation listed because of timing?
That was just, remember, he was
How
on
many
a
years?
leave.
Yeah.
That leave is now,
So now it's done.
it's done. Yeah, he's retirement. That's his official retirement.
Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Special board reports with possible action. Let's start with budget.
Madam Chair and board members, we have Ms. C. Berry. We'll start with the information on the 2022-2023 levy and answer any questions that we might have from anybody. So I'll turn it over to Missy to share with us our public hearing on our proposed property taxes levy information. So Missy, take it over.
Welcome to our truth and taxation hearing. Okay. So the factors in today's PowerPoint presentation will be factors that affect residents' proposed property taxes, which are addressed in the presentation. Remember that the truth in taxation is to be certified in December of 2022 for the payment by the taxpayers in calendar year 2023, and it is money to be used by the school district in your fiscal year 2024. So the truth in taxation law was passed back in 1989. Two major requirements were the tax statements that the counties must send out in November based on the proposed tax levies that were set by the jurisdictions. And then the public hearing was also another requirement for the taxing jurisdictions to hold a public hearing to certify the levy and discuss the 2023 payable levy, the fiscal year budget, and any public comment. So this is the school district's annual required hearing. So components of the district tax levy are set by the state formula by legislature. So the general ed formula, the operating capital, the career and technical, and the reemployment. And then the voter approved as authorized by the state, which is the operating referendum or building bonds. So the property tax is determined by the county assessor, who determines the market value for each parcel of the property. The Minnesota legislature then sets the formulas for tax capacity. The formulas are set or split on different types of property. The county auditor then calculates the tax capacity for each parcel based on the above. And then the county auditor divides the total levy by the total tax of the district to determine the tax rate needed, the tax rate multiplied by each property tax's capacity. There are certain levies that are spread based on market value rather than tax capacity. So the 2022-23 school budget this is what the approved budget was this fall. So starting with the general fund, then going into food service, community ed, the general debt fund, and then the OPEB debt service for the totals down below.
Which, just to make clear for those watching, we did plan on a red budget this
Correct.
year, so.
Correct. Yep. So the most significant changes in the revenue were an increase in pupils, which adjusted the levies and the state aids. There was also an adjustment to some ESSER funding. And then the most significant changes in expenses was an increase in the transportation contract. Just these are differences from last year going into this year. and staffing changes and adjustments to the educational assistant and custodial contract. So here, you're gonna see the process on how to change valuation. You do need to do it in the spring of the year when the evaluation notice comes out. So most local and county appeals take place in April, May, or June after the notice is given out. So this is just a sample of a county treasurer's valuation notice that you would receive in the spring. The effective tax rates are statewide averages of the property classification. So note that farm is among the lowest and the commercial industry is the highest rate. So in general, farmers are getting a break relative to the value of their property. So even at a lower rate, increases in value translates to higher property taxes. So you multiply the market value of a property by its effective tax rate to get its net tax capacity. So the share of the tax liability, you can see that there's a dramatic difference between classifications. The two biggest disparities are farms, which are productive ag land, and then commercial and industrial. So the commercial has a 13.9% of the market share, but pays 31.1% of the taxes. Now on the flip side, the farms have a 17.1% of the market value, but they only pay 6.6% of the taxes. So the slide shows that net property taxes paid to all jurisdictions, which is city, county, schools, townships, etc. And then the other residential down at the bottom is a category that includes apartments, student housing, other land that's underneath manufactured homes located in mobile home parks. Now, the aid to school tax credit is a permanent law that was enacted back in 2017. It affects all existing Fund 7 debt levies except the OPEB bonds. It's a reduction for farmers and timber owners, and it's scheduled to scale to 70% in 2023. And the revenue for the aid to school comes from state income, sales, and other tax revenue. The aid to school was part of the 2019 tax bill, and the $650 billion 2017 tax bill signed into law. It was part of the 2016 tax bill, but it was vetoed by the governor. So the Minnesota Rural Education Association had been working on a credit for farmland since 2015, along with a coalition of farm groups, including the Farm Bureau, Farmers Union, and Corn Growers, and it was a multi-year bipartisan effort. So the credit is on ag land classified as 2A, B, and D, and privately owned timberland. So the farm and timberland taxes went down in 296 school districts beginning in 2018. So, and again, this is on all existing Fund 7 debt levies, excluding the OPEB bonds. So the credit is a replacement of locally collected taxes by farm and timber owners with payments from the state general fund. So the state's general fund revenues come primarily from income and sales tax collections. It's not a shift from any other local property taxes. So since it is a credit to individual taxpayers, it's not going to show up on your levy reports, and it does not include referendums passed since April of this last year. So because the districts want to start the truth in taxation in November, the presentation does not show any data from the November 2022 forecast. So just to give an example, so you can see our little green arrow up here. So this bright yellow is us. Now, some of our neighbors, so this is just showing the aid to school, the total bond credit forecasted for 2023. So some of our neighbors, just to give you some numbers, Staples Motley is actually this red one right next to us. So that one's in the large quartile. And that one is at about 528,000. Brainerd, so the orange, is 318, 381. Little Falls is another orange down below us, and they're at 237,000. And then if we kind of just compare some of those above us, so Pine River is up here, this kind of cream, and they are at 49,500, and Pequot, which is right next to Pine River there, is at 29. Now we are the bright yellow, so we are at about 75,000, which you'll see in a couple of slides. So we're kind of right in the middle there. All right, so the LOR, which is the local operating referendum, and the operating referendums. So they have two tiers. So you have a tier 1 local operating referendum and a tier 2. And then you also have the same thing for an operating referendum. We do not currently have an operating referendum, so that's why you're going to see zeros in these columns, because we're not gaining any revenue off of those since we don't have one. So the top two, so we are actually at this 724 per pupil. So that brings in about 576,000 per resident pupil unit. So about each pupil, we get about $724 off of that levy, off of the local operating levy. And then ag land and seasonal rec properties are exempt from that operating referendum and the LOR levies. All right, so possible reasons for changes to your parcel. Well, change in value or classification to your property. Change in enrollment numbers will change that. Change in valuation of property in the district. Local decisions and requirements. The adjustment for prior years or legislative changes can also affect the local optional revenue. So this data, so this is a referendum picture, how our district compares to other operating referendum revenue. Now remember, I just said in a couple slides ago that we do not have an operating referendum. So all of the cream colored in the state, these are all school districts that do not have an operating referendum. As you can see, some of our neighbors do, so I kind of pulled just some numbers just to give us an idea of what they are actually taking. So our neighbors, Staples Motley, you can see they're in the bright yellow there. So they actually have an operating referendum of $135. Little Falls, just below us, is at $224. Sabika, which is this yellow one right over here, is at $133. And then I pulled Wadena, Deer Creeks. So they are this orange one over here, and they're at $563 per pupil. So just to give you an example of what other schools around us are doing for the operating referendums, but again, we don't have one, so ours is at 0.
If you can add to that,
Mhm.
I'm assuming that those districts that have that, they also take the 724 plus those additional dollars.
Yes.
Okay, just to clarify.
And those dollar amounts, I don't know if I said that, but they are per pupil, so it's $563 per pupil for Wadena, Deer Creek. Staples Motley, $135 per pupil. Just to give you an idea.
Also, can you go back one slide? Can you go back a slide?
Absolutely.
So some districts can go up to $1,700.
Correct.
So the ones that are in the dark red, those districts are taking $1,700 per
max.
pupil.
Yes.
They're taking the max. So if you have, for every kid, every student that they have, they're taking an excess of up to $1,700. So just FYI.
So if you have a student that's, say, in another district and they go to our school, that means that school doesn't get the money and we don't get it either?
We get it.
We do.
For every student that we have in our district, we get that operating revenue, if we had one.
If we have.
Right.
Well,
Even if they're open enrolled to another
Right.
school?
Correct. If we had one, correct. So if one of our students goes to Staples, wasn't on residents, and they have an operating of $135, those residents pay $135 for those students.
Even though they come here.
No, they go there, they get it for their kids. Their residents,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm asking okay, Staples has a kid that open enrolls here, do they still have to pay that operating levy on that kid?
not for us, because
So we don't get it and they don't. What
you
happens?
get it on the kids that are enrolled in their district.
Yes, so they don't get it for that kid. If you open enroll your kid out of the district, Staples wouldn't get the money for the kid that they open enrolled out. And
No, you
neither
only
would
get
we.
it for the kids that are in your building, on your enrollment.
Enrolled or open enrolled.
on your
Only
books.
your number.
Yep.
And just to clarify on that, so let's go back a couple of slides here because this one, you can see the RPU. So this is resident pupil units for the local operating levies. And now up here, we are at adjusted pupil units. So those are our people in the building, not just the residents. Okay, long-term facility maintenance, so that is also included in the school property taxes for 2023. So back in July of every year, the school board has to approve a 10-year operating facility plan. So that has to be submitted to MDE back in July. So back in July, we included the athletic complex, which we're currently working on, and then just normal maintenance, normal upkeep on the building. So the LTFM revenue, so we do receive about $394,000. So the state aid portion of that is about $44,600, and then the local share of the levy piece is $349,000. So the state share is a percentage of about 0.113. And this is reflected in your property tax notice under other levies. All right, so if we put all of that information together into our levy piece, we come up with our proposed pay 23 levy. So here's the certification for Pillager Public Schools. So we have the general fund at 1.873 million. And we have the community ed at about 112,000. Debt service that's not separated on the levy piece. And then the OPEB debt service is the 1.502. For a total of $3,488,774. So it is a difference from, compared to last year, it is a difference of a negative 0.05%. Now the aid to school, so this is where this was gonna come in, the 70% credit of $75,463 does offset the general debt service levy for farmers and timber landowners. So if there's more information needed, anyone can contact the state of Minnesota for property tax relief. You can contact your county auditor, or I would be the main point of contact for the Pillager School District.
That's not what it says on my property tax statement. Pretty sure it screams out Mike Malmberg.
With my phone number.
Yeah.
It does. All right, any questions? All right,
Thank you.
thank you for attending the proposed property tax hearing.
Now, I believe we are looking for a motion to approve the resolution for adoption of the 2022 payable 2023 property tax levy.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Everybody's good with everything? Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Anything else from budget?
No, we did not meet, and do we have a business manager report? Do you have another presentation, or was it all about this tonight?
I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. So now that truth and taxation is done and the levy will be certified tonight, next project is to begin working on our second revision, which is usually done at the February board meeting. And, at the end of this month, we are hit our 6-month period for our fiscal year. So I will be looking at all expenses that we expended for the last 6 months and where we're at budget-wise, so.
So we'll have a budget committee meeting in January somewhere to get ready for that second revision.
Thank you.
Thanks, Missy.
All right, thank you. Next is personnel. We did meet on November 29th and discussed Mr. Malberg's contract. We did do a comparison of the superintendent contracts of 10 local districts around us during negotiations, and I believe, and I believe the other members believe, that the negotiations went very well. We're very appreciative of the working relationship that we had together. The goal of each party was to be competitive of the 10 schools that both parties look at during negotiations. We are both in agreement and feel that we have accomplished that goal and have moved to a compensation package from near to the bottom of those 10 schools to be in line with Staples, Long Prairie, and Wadena in total compensation dollars. Walker and Little Falls are much higher. There are points that we went over, but if you guys have any questions, I assume you would have called. Otherwise, I would make a motion that we accept the contract we agreed to with Mike.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And
Others,
just-
I just want to appreciate the working relationship and it went very well and appreciate working for you guys. Board has been very great to work with my whole 8 years and look forward to 3 more years. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work too, Mike.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you. All right, that is,
And we did pick my goal
yes,
at the goal.
yes.
After 30 minutes
Oh my gosh, yes.
we did come to the goal, which was,
Steve can present on. Oh, yeah, you tell him.
Yeah, what's the goal?
Thank you.
to be more,
I can remember.
more visible and to be more around the building and interaction with the staff, along with my goal as that I picked over there.
Yes.
Make it trackable on his calendar.
Yeah, make it more tractable and present that with my
Yes.
goal.
Which I seen you on Facebook today, leading gingerbread
Yes.
search.
Yeah,
Good job. All right, curriculum.
We did not meet, so let's see. Steve is with me, I just
Yeah,
think.
we did.
You're the chair.
Neither one of us met.
I thought maybe you'd want to just give us a speech because it's your, no, all right.
On personnel? Oh, no, on,
On curriculum.
one of the things that we did discuss, Ryan and I had one of our weekly meetings that we meet every week on is, we kind of have decided on my big board in my office is we came up with a list of different things that Ryan and I felt like we want to share with you guys as a board members of things that we kind of have going on here that we want to kind of give you an update on, that sometimes we feel we don't do a very good job of sharing with you guys as a board of what do we do and what is it like and what's it about. So we're going to pick one of those things at each board member at each board meeting and give you just a quick little synopsis of what it is and what does it entail. So Ryan is going to do a little, and part of his curriculum report is going to do on each board meeting is just a quick little update on what it is. So you guys get a little better understanding of, you might know what, you might have heard what the Freshman Academy is, but get a little bit more of a deep dive of what those things are. And then we're going to pick one of those topics each week and kind of give you a little bit more of a background about those things, like a little bit more of a deeper dive of what is a personalized learning plan or what is standards-based report cards, or, just to give you a little bit more info instead of just the higher ceiling of it. So today we picked the Freshman Academy. So Ryan put a little thing together. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan and take it away, Mr. Kaminga.
All right. So I have 2 pieces here. I handed out a report, and I'll let you read through most of that on your own. Certainly, if you have any questions, always you can reach out to me. But kind of some highlights in particular between November and now. Work on career pathways, which is really going to be some of the conversation on Freshman Academy 2, what we're doing in the high school. The second one there under a data management piece, we are going to move to a different data management system from Viewpoint to one called Prolific, in terms of helping us better use our data for decision-making in student instruction.
And that's like a piece of that might be a few months from now. We might tell you,
Right.
we might do a presentation on what is Prolific.
Yep.
We talk about that. And,
Right.
somebody on the
Instead of just
curriculum committee
glazing
might
over it,
see that,
We're going to go a little bit.
but you guys might not know what that is. So that that's the little bit of that deeper dive.
Right.
Now, is Prolific just a data management
Mhm.
system or?
It is. It's very similar to in mission to Viewpoint what we have. Usability, accessibility for teachers though is ramped up considerably.
Okay.
So we're really excited about that, but we're just in the beginning parts. And like Mike said, that definitely will be a topic as one of our kind of presentations at the board level, is to show kind of the change that we're making there. And just a little update in terms of state assessment planning, those things are all starting to ramp up. School within a school, we talked about that in the last couple of board meetings, just so you know that process is still going, and we're still making a lot of progress with that, and we'll present that at the district leadership team in January. And then the last piece is that World's Best Workforce was submitted to the Department of Ed.
Me digging that 5th and 6th grade teachers have met and they're really excited about it, and I think it's going really well. So
It is, yeah, absolutely. And we've made a lot of momentum in terms of looked at a schedule. We've looked at how that feasible we can make that work so that we are meeting those goals of that transition from elementary to middle school, and then extending some of that time in terms of reading and mathematics. So how are we going to get more time for kids to build skills in those core areas? And so we're excited kind of where we've gone with it. And like I said, by January, we'll have a presentation on that. So I'm going to go into just a little bit or a deeper dive into Freshman Academy. And we've talked about it before. We had it previously. We had it 2 or 3 years ago. And then COVID hit, and then it kind of went away. But kind of what's the purpose behind Freshman Academy? Why do we do it? And then I have a short little clip. Instead of bringing the 4 teachers that teach the 4 components, I'm just going to run a little clip for you, about 5 minutes, and they'll talk a little bit about what they cover. Okay? So Freshman Academy, the purpose around Freshman Academy, some of the big things, it's that transition from middle school to high school, right? So looking at both how do we support students in a number of different ways. The big one being that career exploration. In middle school, they have Meteor and they do some of that career exploration, but then where does that pick up in the high school and where do we continue that? And so Freshman Academy takes a big chunk of that. We've talked about it for years of wanting that financial literacy piece and how do we start to do that. So we have components of that involved as well. One of the things in particular we're looking at is developmentally, a 13-year-old with financial literacy is what's the topics we can cover. Okay? Healthy habits and organizational skills, part of that transition piece as they're going from middle school into high school. That transition from a standards-based report card to now a standard report card that involves a GPA. And where is that importance lie for the student? And then a look at the world around them and the cultures around them as well. Okay, and how do they interact? How do they communicate? How do they do that? And then the rounding out piece of that Freshman Academy is that start to that personalized learning plan, the development of it. And then the moving forward will be the continued access to that development or that personalized learning plan as they go forward. So there's 4 subject areas. And so there's 4 subjects in career exploration, health, and we really focus on mental health habits for students and how do we help them prepare and be successful. That financial literacy component I mentioned, and then world cultures. The structure of it is they rotate through a different subject each quarter. So we had 4 subjects. We have 4 sections of it as well. That's about with 100 students in a class, roughly, for calculation, about 20 to 25 students in a class. And so there's 4 areas for teachers that students rotate through. Included with those classes or those subject pieces, we do a check and connect every Friday. So we're, again, connecting with students in terms of where are you at right now? Where are you at with your scores and with your work? And how are we making sure that we're getting that done? Okay. And then they have access to support as well. In particular, one of the areas that we wanted to make sure is they had some math support. And looking at kind of talking with math teachers and some of those pieces, like how do we continue to offer that? And so our financial literacy teacher also provides a support piece each week, offering additional math support for students. So let's take a second. I have, like I said, a video. It's about 5 minutes to meet the teachers and a little bit about what they cover. So I'm just going to play that. See if the sound works. Okay.
My name is Matt Solberg, and I teach the Career Exploration part of Freshman Academy this year.
I'm Jacob Russell, and I am teaching the personal finance portion of the Freshman Academy classes.
Paul Clark, I teach health component of the Freshman Academy and with a special emphasis on the mental emotional piece.
My name is Melissa Rivera, and I teach the world culture component of Freshman Academy.
Yeah, the main topics for this class would be getting the ninth graders, 13 and 14-year-olds to really think about their futures for the first time. So they're thinking about career pathways that might interest them. They're thinking about specific jobs and occupations that they might want to have after they graduate high school or after they graduate college. They start thinking about what kind of colleges they might want to go to and how to apply and how much that might cost. Or they think about maybe not going to college at all, which is great too. Great opportunities, starting businesses, getting other jobs right out of high school. Start thinking about that. They start thinking about the real world and the expenses they're going to have, their lifestyles, what kind of income they're going to have to come up with through specific jobs in order to meet the lifestyle they want to have in the future. But most importantly, this class, I think, gets them to start thinking about strategically making decisions on classes they're going to take for their next 3 years in high school in order to get them on the right path to being successful once they're done with high school. And the culmination of that is a personal learning plan is the final thing that we do in the class. It just gives them a foundation in ninth grade through the personal learning plan, making some of those decisions, something they can build off of, something they can modify, something that will hopefully, again, help them go on that right path over their last 3 years of high school.
Some of the major topics that we're covering in personal finance have to do with online banking, creating a savings and checking account, how to get a first job. We'll talk about cars, buying a car, paying for future education or trainings.
I focus on the health triangle, which is physical, mental, emotional, and family social. For the physical piece, pretty easy. 15 minutes, a couple days a week, we go in the gym and let them have some activity of their choice. Let them run around a little bit, get some energy out. For the family social, we did a couple units on just, relationships and why those are important. And for the mental emotional, Northern Pines comes in on Thursdays and they do a great job of covering some important topics. The ladies are very knowledgeable in their field and it's been very well received. They know that maybe they don't need it right now, but they probably will come in contact with someone that needs that, and they've been very receptive.
With the world culture, we try to focus on 4 of the major cultural groupings here in the United States. So we have Native Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans, and Latin Americans. And so we try to look at some of the stereotypes that surround those cultural groupings, try to get rid of some of those and replace those with positives for each of the cultural groups so that students are aware of the contributions that those groupings have made either historically or presently, and we can be better accepting of the global community around us.
Yeah, the biggest aha moment for me was really kind of understanding that in ninth grade at the age of 13 or 14, that they really haven't thought about their future a whole lot. And for some of them, that's hard, but in my mind, it's a great time for them to start thinking about that. And the specific thing is a lesson we call reality check, where we have the kids kind of dream what lifestyle they want to live when they're done with high school or when they're done with college. They start thinking about the specific expenses that they're going to have to pay for everything from their home to their car to school loans to the how much they're going to save and things like that. And once they add up all of those expenses, they see on a monthly basis how much they're going to have to come up with. And it really teaches them for the first time that if I want to live this lifestyle, I need to have this much income. If I need this much income, I need to have this kind of job. So it kind of connects the dots for them all together from expenses to income, and hopefully it kind of gets them thinking for the first time along the lines of trying to make the right decisions to get on that right pathway for the next 3 years of high school.
Maybe being a gamer.
And we do a
isn't
check and
okay for
connect
everyone.
every Friday, and it's starting to hit home now, but, you know, why GPA is important. You know, we're doing it every week, they kind of, all right, this must be important. You know, I want to try to get that 78 up to an 80, so I get that better grade point average, so.
So continued development around here. And so one of the things to also consider is that Freshman Academy is really in its first year. And so that first year of development and implementation is, there's always a lot of tweaking and pieces that we will continue to make an adjustments to. Some of the continued career programming pieces that we have will be continued pathway development. And so we have the Pillager academies in those pathways. We will continue to look at which of those pathways match to our students. So they're driven by student interest, they're driven by the economic need, and that students can get jobs in those areas. And they're driven by community need as well. So what is the community looking for? We're looking at ways that the career investigation piece is embedded into all of our classes, including the core, not just our elective classes as well. And then that skills instruction that's embedded in all of those classes. We talk about it all the time of the skills, and we talk about it a lot in Freshman Academy as well. Those soft skills, right? Communication, creativity, collaboration, working with other people. How do you do that? We need to make sure that we're incorporating that into everything that we do in all of our classes. The possible development, just a lot of conversation around where's that culminating piece for them at the end, right? That piece that kind of pulls it all together. And then the last piece is more with that personalized learning plan. Where are those touch points? Where do we come back to it so that what they're developing in 9th grade, they're coming back to in 10th grade, in 11th grade, and in 12th grade. And so we are writing and developing that process so that we make sure that they have a working plan. It's not just, I did it in 9th grade, it went on a shelf and I'm done. Instead, it's a plan that they continually come back to. We currently use a system called MCIS, which is partly developed through the state of Minnesota. We are actually going to be switching to a more robust system through our career cohort. It's covered as part of the cost of being in that cohort. That will start in the 23-24 school year. So, and that'll have even more of that personalized learning plan, that connection to scholarship information for our 11th and 12th graders, connection to career information, Indeed data, which is our economic development and jobs availability. So, questions about Freshman Academy?
Some of you may remember, if you had older children,
Right,
you may remember we did Reality Store.
right. You guys went in the gym,
I liked that.
right?
And this, I mean, Mr. Savage said, remind the board members that we don't do that anymore. And the reason we don't do that anymore is because, remember, the checkbooks, how many of us have a checkbook anymore? This is kind of, well, you get, kids don't, this is replacing that.
They
No.
should have to learn how to write it. People of grown
So,
adults that.
This
don't
is
know
the
it.
new Reality Store.
Scary.
This is moving our kids into the next.
Right.
Yeah, they just estimate, that looks about right.
Yeah.
It's about
No, shouldn't be a
reality check that Matt was talking about. It is very much those components, but it's a little more updated to what they see every day, right? And the other is trying to developmentally look at it as a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old. I had a great conversation with Jacob, who teaches the financial literacy, and to come at a 13-year-old and talk about a car loan or to make that equate to like a house loan in those pieces, you're at 13 years old, you're not there.
Their parents should have been getting them there.
Right.
Every time they want to buy a snowmobile, I'll borrow
What does
you
it
the
look
money.
like, right? How do you do that?
I made a contract.
Right. So so he's looking at how do I connect that? How do I connect the dots for them on that piece of it? I will say that the group of them are doing a really great job. Matt, who talked about the career piece, is doing a bang-up job. He's a first-year teacher and he's doing excellent. So.
Good.
I think one of the things, I really love this presentation, Ryan, and it explains it so well that I think as we do these, I would recommend that we, on your website underneath, we start building these tabs and we put
I
these,
think we can just
post these things. So when people look, what is Freshman Academy? We could say, because you put this time into these things.
Or anybody that's, well, you're not teaching kids how to deal
Yeah,
with the
go
checkers.
to,
We can show you what we're
right.
doing.
So I think you put this much time into these, let's start building this, like a library of this information and put it out there
Yep,
where we can see it.
absolutely. I think that's great.
I would kind of like to see the building block and where you go from ninth grade to 10th grade to 11th grade to 12th
Yeah.
grade. I'd like to see that final.
Yep.
It's legal.
And that will be kind of those next pieces as we're going through is, what does it look like in ninth grade now? What does it look like in 10th grade?
Yep.
11th grade?
Follow along.
Especially for the kids that, like, my kid this year is in 10th grade, so how does this?
Right.
To not just totally skip that.
Nope, absolutely.
That I
In
wanted
fact,
to be able to,
this week we're meeting with seniors.
Yeah.
And as we get into January, we'll be going back and meeting with 10th graders and 11th graders. So it has continued that piece of it and some of the things that were done years prior. But it is moving to a bigger system.
So do you have 10th, 11th, and 12th mapped out? Like this is freshmen.
We
They
have,
go to these classes, these teachers.
we have some of it mapped out. It isn't a class though, in terms of like Freshman Academy is a class that is happening. It is more embedded. And so some of the pieces that we're talking about as our cohort is how is that embedded? And so when I say embedded, we talk about career pathways a lot in electives, and they talk about the career in those pieces, but it really needs to be in all of our core classes as well. And so me as a math teacher that I'm talking about, where is that connection? And then taking the time to pull it back to that personalized learning plan and saying, okay, is this an area that interests you? A lot of that personalized learning plan is not coming down to that specific career that you're going to pick. Even as a senior, to narrow that down, it's too early for that. But for them to have more conversations of, I really enjoy this area, right? I want to look at more things in this area. So maybe it's around science technology. Maybe it's around the humanities. So I want to do things that involve writing, communication, and some of those pieces. And so all of our teachers need to be versed in getting that conversation going with kids and then touching back to it and saying, hey, let's indicate that. Let's put that down as I really, really enjoyed doing that.
So, yeah, like Brian asked, I'd like to see that mapped out. I'm trying to figure out how 10th is different than 11th, or are we just having teachers talk about it and hopefully you single out a couple kids to get them, or maybe we don't know all that yet. Or if there's something you could,
We will have that mapped out and we will present on it as well. We
okay,
certainly can do that.
that would be great.
We're, like I said, some of it is in development and some of it has to do with our changeover from this MCIS, which is our current system, to what's in this new system, which will answer some of those questions.
Now, with each student, do we have a teacher that is assigned to that student saying, you're the one that's going to put them through this process? Or in other words, someone who tracks how that student is doing?
So the ongoing piece
Yeah.
in particular. So one of the things that we're discussing and certainly haven't come to a final decision on is that advisory piece or how do we connect back to it? I know Jason has been asking that, and how do we continue to do that? Certainly that's happening right now with these freshmen because they're meeting with those 4 teachers, and it's the same 4 teachers they're connecting with for that check and connect. But how we're asking the same question of we want to connect a kid with that person ongoing, right? So they have that relationship as well.
So yet to be determined.
Yep. Good questions. Any other questions?
all right, anything else?
Nope.
All right,
No,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else from curriculum?
That's it.
All right, we'll move on to policy.
Third and final.
Yeah,
Okay, today is the third and final reading of policy number 515, 524, 603, 604, 708, 721, 722, 509, I make a motion to approve them.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns?
I think you mentioned policy 603, and I don't see that as a third
Or
reading.
did it go as an action? Is that a typo, Mike?
Yeah, it should be an action.
Okay.
I don't know why I didn't show up there, but.
And then going on to.
We need to vote
Oh,
first.
sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now, Christie.
All right. And now we have school meals policy. There's a section that got deleted about the school district may provide an alternative meal that meets federal and state requirements to a student who does not have sufficient funds in the student's account. So that is deleted, so the school district will accommodate special dietary needs with respect to alternative meals and the cost of the alternative meal.
Beautiful. Anything else? Policy. Activities.
We did not meet yet.
Beautiful. Facilities.
We did not meet, but I'm sure there's an update on something.
We were supposed to,
Just saying.
well, I was supposed to meet last week with Wold on the facility analysis. And weather canceled that meeting, so that is going to be tomorrow. No, so I don't have anything to meet yet on that. However, I do have this little, I just wanted to share with, Widseth did drop this off on the little, on our,
Nice.
we'll hang up somewhere, I don't know where, or maybe in the district office or somewhere. Kind of a nice one on our CTC center, so I just wanted to share that with you. But other than that, that's all I got on facilities. I'll have something on the facility analysis from Wold tomorrow. We'll go through and then we'll, at some point, get the facility committee together and go through that.
Got it.
All right. Moving on to other MDE 0 through 4 projected enrollment.
You have this, you had this in your board packet, roughly, it's the numbers going into kindergarten. We're at 71 projected right now, 4-year-olds. I'm sure we'll be somewhere in that 90 kindergarten by the time it's all said and done, so.
All right. Then moving on to Mr. Euban. It is your final board meeting with us.
Yes, it is.
And I would like to personally thank you, and on behalf of the board, for your 8 years of service. I think we've challenged each other, but we've always done what's best for the students, and I think we've been very good for each other. So you will be very much missed, and I hope you don't become a stranger, because just because you're not on the board doesn't mean we don't want your input. So, thank you very much. And we'd like to present you with this beautiful apple.
Apple. Can I eat it or?
No.
Well, no, you can't thank somebody with it.
All right,
It's
well,
heavy.
thanks.
We do have some treats afterwards too for us, so
Wrap it all up.
apple pie and some ice cream. So I appreciate too, Steve, this as a superintendent, you challenged me many times and made me think outside of and I appreciated that. So thank you.
Well, this board's been real fun to work with, so I really appreciate and will remember my time on the board fondly rather than pulling my hair out. So,
Done a lot in 8 years with your time and things that we've
yeah,
done.
we've
so.
done quite a bit.
You should be proud.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Mike, superintendent's report.
Thanks, Madam Chair. A few items, not a whole lot. We do have a winter break coming up, starting on Friday. So for the 23rd through January 2nd, no school. MSBA conference on January 11th through 13th. Staff will be presenting the mentor and mentee program. So we're excited for that. We do have conferences coming up on January 23rd. From 12 to 7:30, so there will not be school on that day. And then on the evening of January 26th, from 4 to 7:30 p.m. We also have a couple of staff development days on January 20th and also on the January 23rd. So that's a couple of things going on there that Ryan will be working on, getting some plans together for that. We have the Foreign Shell Basketball Classic coming up tomorrow night. And then on Thursday of this week, we have 4 teams for both girls and boys basketball. So we're looking forward to that. It's always a well-attended event this week. We have Terrence Talley coming here on January 24th. He's a well-known speaker that will be here for the middle school and then high school, as well as 3rd and 4th grade. He'll be presenting in the CTC Center a little bit on bullying, peer pressure, and making good choices. So we're excited to have him. And then last thing I got, the School Readiness will be doing their Christmas program tomorrow and Wednesday afternoon in the CTC Center. That's always kind of a cute little program. So that is all I have.
Awesome. Anybody have anything else? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Hey,
Meeting
Mike,
adjourned.
I have a question about snow days.
Yeah.